Femme and Furious, a podcast where pop culture meets a feminine framing. I am your host, Julia Rose Portela, and today we are taking a ride home in Johnny Kavanaugh's car as we dive into chapters 11 through 20 of Binding 13. But before we get into today's episode, let me tell you how you can support and follow the podcast. You can subscribe anywhere that you get your podcast. Comment, rate, leave a review, all those good things. That helps the podcast get out to the right people. You can also watch on YouTube. You can get full cultural analysis over on Substack if you want more pop culture analysis, essays, things like that over there. If you want more community, fun, group chat hang, go over to the Patreon. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram and TikTok at Femme and Furious Pod. All right, some trigger warnings up top. There is some abuse discussed in this episode, and I will be going into themes of abuse at the end of the episode. Once again, if you're reading the book and you're here, you already know these trigger warnings, but just in case, for whatever reason, you're listening to this and you have not read the book, just know we're diving into some physical abuse today. I just want to say thank you for waiting for this episode. I'm sorry it's late. I had real Mercury retrograde problems. The episode deleted and I had to redo it. So I'm redoing it now on Thursday and I'll be posting it later. And then there will be an episode tomorrow. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But thank you for being patient, for waiting for it, because I went to go post it and realized that whatever I recorded wasn't there. And I had deleted my notes, so I had to redo the entire episode from start to finish. Okay, so let's jump in with chapter 11. Chapter titled, A Fist in the Face, Preferable to a Pie. Johnny's POV. The summary is, after winning Man of the Match, Johnny finds himself completely unable to celebrate with his teammates because he's simply wrapped up in wondering what the fuck he did that made Shannon literally run away from him. In typical Johnny fashion, he overthinks his gut reaction to talking to her while completely ignoring his common sense about his worsening injury. Feeling 50 shades of fucked up physically and emotionally, Johnny preps to Irish goodbye this party, no pun intended, only to be stopped by Gibbsy, who puts on a performance of Walk of Life by Dire Straits on his behalf. Okay. Who's who? So we get a little bit more about Patrick Feely in this stretch of chapters. Patrick is like one of Johnny's best friends. It's up there with Huey, who is Claire's older brother, and Gibbsy, who I would say is like Johnny's best friend. Patrick Feely is observant. He doesn't push issues. He says in this stretch of chapters that he's not drinking, but we know he does drink because he was passed out on Johnny's couch like 2 chapters ago. So we get a little bit more about his relationship with Johnny. He is another person who's kind of like, what's going on with this injury? Like, are you okay? So, Johnny thinks he's doing a really good job hiding this injury, hiding what he's experiencing. And then you have somebody like Patrick Feely who, even though he's not going to push the issue with Johnny, is going to point it out to him. And when he says, I'm not drinking, and Johnny's kind of like, why? And he's like, just don't feel like it. Johnny's like, I give him the same respect. I'm not going to push him either. So I really like Patrick Feely. He is a character that, like, in later books, we discover a lot more about. And he's a character that I find really interesting, and he brings a lot to every scene that he's in these small moments. It's just a small exchange that he has with Johnny. And yet he's like, are you ready to leave? Because I'm ready to go. I want to get the fuck out of here. Like, and he knows that Johnny's like not feeling this. And on top of it, sees something about his injury and brings it up to him, which I really like. We also get mention of Luke Casey and Robbie Mack, who are other boys on the team. They're not major characters, or at least they haven't been thus far, but they are 2 boys on the team that are at this party that are, hanging out with Johnny, and part of all of the shenanigans that are going on. And then we get mention of Sive. Now, Sive is Huey and Claire's mom, because this party is happening at Huey's house. So we get mention of Sive, and she is a nurse. So welcome, Sive, to the chat. Like, this is a gentle spoiler without spoiling anything, but we get to spend a fair amount of time with everybody's parents and have a real understanding of everyone's parents for the most part. So welcome, Sive. She's a nurse. This is how she comes into the conversation because Patrick Feely's like, bro. They say lad. Sive's a nurse. You should go see Sive. If something's wrong, you should just have her take a look at it. Obviously, Johnny is like, nah, I'm grand, right? Like, I'm good. I don't need that. So Johnny's still in denial, but nice mention of Sive here, Claire and Huey's mom. Some important details that we should talk about. This chapter is taking place after the Schoolboy Shield game, which happened last episode. On chapter 10, we got the Schoolboy Shield game where Shannon and Johnny take the picture together. That's February 25th of the year, and Shannon started Tommen January 10th. So I just wanted to mention the timeline because I want us to be aware of it as we kind of go through these different pieces. Shannon has just run away from Johnny, and Johnny is like, was this what rejection felt like? If so, it fucking sucked. This is coming from Johnny, who is an elite athlete who has a pretty solid carved path of playing professional rugby in front of him, who has this innate fear of being used because people know who he is, that he's this all-star rugby player, and he's not used to hearing no. He's not used to being told what to do. He's got a lot of leniency because of his athletic exceptionalism. Shannon, number one, not knowing who he is, has no idea to the extent in which Johnny plays rugby. She thinks that he plays for school and he's really good. Cool. She doesn't know that he is a semi-professional athlete who's played on the senior team before. She doesn't know that he's been on the under 18s. She doesn't know that he's going to be on the U20s. So the fact that Shannon has rejected him is not only probably the first time that this has happened, but like the first time that maybe somebody has rejected him because they don't know who he is. And she's not rejecting him, right? Let's also be honest. Shannon's not rejecting him. She feels uncomfortable because she's never been put in a situation where a boy has given her this type of attention. The type of attention that she's used to getting is either from her brothers, from her father, okay, or the boys at school who used to tease her, taunt her, bully her. So this is like a brand new experience for Shannon. And that for her is uncomfortable. And because she's got this fight or flight response, she's like trying to book it out of there anytime she's uncomfortable. And similarly, this is a brand new experience for Johnny where somebody doesn't know who he is. So they're not responding from this place of like wanting to please him because they feel that they could get something out of him. Instead, she responds based off of how she's feeling. And Johnny doesn't know how to process that. So he's like, is this what rejection feels like? If so, it fucking sucks. And honestly, whether he likes to admit it or not, Johnny does have a fear of rejection because while he's not used to it, his entire goal in life is to make the senior team or to get the call up to senior team. And the fact that he's not match ready right now, the fact that he is still suffering from this injury is something that is so fear-inducing to him because he's afraid that he will not be accepted into this team, that he'll be rejected from this thing that is his life. So he does have a fear of rejection. It's just like really manifesting first and foremost through his relationship with Shannon at this point. Johnny also says that he's literally like overwhelmed by the crowd that pulls up to this game and the pressure that he feels after a game like this, that he is so overwhelmed by the crowd and the journalists and the photographers and all this stuff that he needed reprieve. And the first thing that like came to his mind was Shannon. You know, so this innate pull, like a moth to a flame, that he has to her already, that despite the fact that they don't even really know each other yet, that they've spent no quality time together outside of her like half concussed state, she's already a safe space for him, something that helps him tune out the noise of the celebrity that is building around him, considering that he's just a boy. He is 17 years old. Doesn't matter that he plays in a man's world or that he's been on these older teams. He's still just a boy. He's 17, just shy of 18. And he needs a safe space. He needs to be able to tune out the celebrity. It's a very young age to be receiving so many accolades and so much pressure from the public eye. So the fact that this is all cresting around him and he seeks out Shannon because it quiets that for him is something really important too. I also want to go back to this idea of like the feeling of rejection, because oftentimes that's tied to shame, feeling unworthy, feeling like you're not enough. And Johnny has his own deeper experience with shame, literally calling his injury his own inability to heal. He says like my own inability to heal is a failing instead of like what it actually is. So he calls his inability to heal from this injury a failing. It's like a moral or physical failing on his part instead of like what it is, which is a medical issue that he should be getting checked out, that he should be saying like, hey, this is not healing correctly. Something's not right. Something's incorrect here. And yet, instead of doing all that, he takes it on himself and basically has a lot of shame around the fact that his body can't heal correctly. So this is like a really interesting insight, this chapter, to a little bit more of Johnny's mindset and what's going on with him, which is an important setup. This is an important tee up for the car ride home that comes later. So let's dive into Chapter 12, Confession Time, Shannon's POV. After a shockingly quiet weekend at the Lynch household, Shannon celebrates by chatting with Claire and daydreaming about the possibility of hanging out with her friends next weekend, since our favorite flanker Gibbs has passed his driver's test. Claire calls Shannon out for taking a picture with Johnny after the game, and Shannon admits defeat, telling Claire that she really likes him. Claire, ever the most supportive girl's girl, tells Shannon that Johnny is different than how girls make him out to be at school, and she encourages Shannon to get to know him. She invites her over either way, but Shannon tells her she'll never be able to go and begs Claire to let her off the hook. So in this chapter, Who's Who, we get mention of Aoife, okay? Aoife is Joey's girlfriend. She's a 6th year at BCS. She is one of my favorite characters. I love Joey and Aoife. They are like my favorite power couple. We're really just getting introduced to Aoife, but she'll be a deeper part of the Boys of Tommen, like lore and mythology as we go through. Important details from this chapter. Shannon shares in this chapter that her father is behaving like a human being, and by that she means the very low standards of getting them Chinese food. Like her father bought them takeout and passes her the remote instead of throws it at her. But she says, he would erupt soon. He always did. I could only hope that I wasn't standing in the eye of the storm when that happened. So we're getting a little bit of forewarning here that like this is not the peak of what we will see from Teddy Lynch. This is really just that, what she calls it, the calm before the storm. I want to keep us in the timeline of it all. So this chapter takes place the Sunday after the match. So the match is on Friday the 25th. This chapter where she's on the phone with Claire takes place on Sunday after the match. So the match happens on Friday. Gibbs passed his theory test on Friday, which is the 25th. We are now on February 27th. So I just wanted to keep us in the timeline of it all. I love this quote from Claire where she says, well, I've never met Johnny Depp in the flesh and it hasn't stopped me from falling madly in love with him. Just this like, again, this like real rootedness in girlhood and what it is to have these like celebrity crushes and you geek out with your friends over them. And, you know, just this idea of like love isn't something that is tangible, that is understandable, that can be known to us just because we know the person. Like there's something in Johnny Depp that Claire admires, and you know, she's obviously not madly in love with him, but there is something that we can recognize, that like there can be an attraction to somebody or to something even if we don't know it all the way. And so she's kind of validating Shannon here a little bit as Shannon, you know, copes with her feelings with Johnny, even though she's never really had a conversation with him. Chapter 13, Creeping and Winging, Johnny's POV. To his great dismay, Johnny has a huge crush on Shannon, and Johnny, Mr. Rugby star that he is not in the position to entertain a girlfriend. Gibbsy, who wants Johnny's full attention, throws a tiny tantrum at lunch when Johnny simply cannot peel his eyes away from Shannon. Dripping in jealousy, Bella continues to do the absolute most to get even an inch of Johnny's attention. Gibbs is sick of Johnny pining and decides to take actions into his own hands. Important details from this chapter. There's a whole spat between Gibbs and Johnny where Johnny is basically like, support me. And Gibbs comes back and says, I am nothing but supportive of you. I'm your number fucking one supporter, Johnny Kavanaugh. You really hurt my feelings just now. And what I love about this is Gibbs has an emotional fluency, even though he's mostly socially inappropriate. There's something about Gibbs that understands the emotional connection that people have, or has this emotional fluency. That's what I want to call it, or emotional intelligence, even though he can be 17 and socially inappropriate and say things about his dick and all these types of things. There is something about him that is really rooted in like very clear understanding and emotional support. And Gibbs is a very loyal friend to Johnny. We see this multiple times already, and we will see it many, many times more. So Gibbs is our truth sayer, and Johnny is always quick to say that he is a big idiot, right? And but at the end of the day, nobody has Johnny's front, sides, or back like Gibbs does, and vice versa. Johnny also has Gibbs back, but because we're in Johnny's book and because we're experiencing Johnny's POV, we really get to see how Gibbs shines as a friend and how he once again uses his emotional intelligence to have an easy read on people. He possesses a high amount of this. He is consistently creating spaces where other men can be vulnerable, especially Johnny, who is so repressed. So the fact that he won't just back down, he's like, you hurt my feelings. And Johnny has to contend with that, because whether Johnny was joking or not, he's like, I need you to support me, when all Gibbs does is support him. And it's true. Like, what Gibbs is saying here is the truth. He has back in every scenario, which we will see in like the next chapter. So I really loved this, and I really love that like Gibbs can create this safe little bubble in a way that feels like fun or even like a little stupid to Johnny, and yet it really helps Johnny come to terms with his feelings many, many times. This is just one of many times that this will happen over the course of the book. Chapter 14, Provincial Licenses, Shannon POV. Gibbsy pulls up to the girls' lunch table to flash his brand new car keys. Shannon eats her lunch, entertained by the flirtatious banter between Gibbsy and Claire, where Gibbsy proclaims that not only does he have a 5-star cock, but that he's ready to be in a relationship with Claire whenever she's ready to be in a relationship with him. Lizzie goes off on Gibbs, telling him to stop playing with Claire's emotions. Johnny finally makes it to their table, and Lizzie turns her wrath to him, claiming that he is doing the same thing to Shannon. Lizzie then storms off, giving Gibbs the go-ahead to set up a double date between himself, Claire, Johnny, and Shannon. Shannon desperately wants to go, but fears her father's reaction, leading her to politely decline. Important details. Timeline-wise, we are now at Monday, March 1st. So a lot happens this Monday, March 1st. So this is the Monday after the Schoolboy Shield game, and there's a quote from Shannon where she says, "You're a dead girl walking if he finds out." And this is Shannon talking about her father, about her going on this double date. So the language that she uses around her father and his response to things, like, yikes. This is twice in less than 20 chapters that she has claimed that this man will kill her. And listen, we use language pretty facetiously. Like, we'll say all the time, like, oh, if I'm late, my mom will kill me. We're not being literal about it. Shannon's being quite literal here, so it's important to recognize that. Okay, moving ahead. Chapter 15, Bathroom Breaks and Propositions, Shannon POV. Ronan McGarry apparently has a death wish since he decides to ignore Johnny's forewarning and literally corner Shannon after school. His listening ears don't work because he won't take Shannon's big fat whopping no for an answer. Luckily, our loyal lapdog, Gibbsy, comes to the rescue. Hearing the commotion, Johnny steps in. Shannon notices that he is walking with a slight limp, but quickly lets that thought go when she realizes that all of these boys, Ronan, Gibbsy, and Johnny, are fighting over her. A confusing and strange thought from our very shy girl, Shannon. Now, I know that she says in this chapter that she's not shy, but I think she kind of is. Her stress starts to well up, putting her right back into the bathroom to hide. And with all the commotion, this causes her to miss her bus. Panicked over this, she frantically starts calling Joey to pick her up. To no avail, Shannon resigns to waiting at the school until the late bus comes, only to find awaiting Johnny for her outside of the bathroom when she emerges. Okay, things to note from this chapter. This moment has to be so terrifying for Shannon. Not just the regular trauma of being cornered by a guy like Ronan. And if you're listening to this podcast and you identify as femme in any capacity, like feminine at all, you know that men have done this. I've been in a situation where I've been cornered and felt like I can't get out of it. I know other women have felt this way as well. But the fact that he then says that he saw her in her underwear and like he knows what she's got going on under there, and like I saw all of you, like all of this stuff, and he thinks that it's a good come on, that this is attractive to a woman in any capacity. But then like take into consideration the fact that she has been bullied and harassed this way before. She's been put in positions where boys from school, when she went to BCS, demand sexual favors from her, whatever they may be, or put her in sexually precarious positions, only for her to reject them because they're bullying her and taunting her, and then them calling her a frigid or a prude. So she has been, taunted this way before, and I just felt like this had to be so scary for her. We've been in the book for a time where it feels really long, but she's only started at Tommen on January 10th. It's not even been 2 months. It hasn't been 2 months yet. So it's not like her system is decompressed from all of this. She's still in a situation where being cornered by a guy like Ronan is going to feel very distressing to her nervous system when her nervous system is used to being bullied and abused and harassed. I also think the whole conversation with Gibbsy and Ronan is incredibly critical because while it's honorable that Gibbs comes in, why does it take another man to prevent another man from doing shitty things towards women when the woman in front of you is emphatically saying no? So Ronan is not taking no for an answer. He won't accept the fact that Shannon doesn't want to give him her number, pushes in on her. He gets physical with her, like he's touching her, like she's property. And every time she says no, he is getting more and more frustrated and angry with her. So I am also going to say, like, if you're a woman or you're somebody who identifies as a woman, how many times have you been at a bar or you've been out somewhere socially and a guy's not leaving you alone, is asking for your number, right? Only for you to say, like, I have a boyfriend, because the guy respects an invisible man more than he respects you saying no. That's what's happening here. And as much as I love like Gibbs coming in and, doing this he's really doing it for Johnny. He's doing it for Shannon too, but Johnny's like his first priority here. It shouldn't be at a position where another man has to come in and defend a woman to begin with, because when a woman is saying no, men should just respect that. It's also why, if you go back in time to like 2008 maybe, or 2009, like in that era of time when they had the SNL skit, like, where your boyfriend at? That skit is so funny. Even as a young woman in high school, that skit was so funny to me and my friends, because this is how men act. This is how men TM. I'm going to put a TM on it, okay? Men TM act. They will not accept your emphatic no as a response, but they will respect another man or listen to another man or cower before another man, or, where your boyfriend at? Is he tall? Is he hefty? Is he coming back? Where your boyfriend at? Right? Like, we have that skit where he's like sussing out if another man is going to come and interrupt this thing that he's doing, even though she's moving over seats, even though Shannon is saying, like, no, I don't want to give you my number. I don't really know you. I don't want to learn about you by going back into the bathroom and hooking up with you. Like, ew, no. And so Gibbs, we love him for stepping in. We hate that he needs to do it because Ronan should just listen and accept no the first time. Shannon says that Johnny is too scary, and she is saying this in relation to his physical demeanor. So I know that we love Johnny. I know that he's our MMC. I know that we are endeared to him. But I just want to point out that Shannon thinks his physical presence beautiful, intoxicating, scary. Too scary. So there is something about his physical presence that does intimidate her. And I don't want to ignore that this language is in there talking about their relationship before it's even started. So we have more shame for Shannon here. I'm going to read a quote from the book. Rubbing a hand over my face, I quickly swiped at my damp cheeks and battled to get a handle on my emotions. I was annoyed with myself for being the kind of person who cried when angry. I wanted to be a shouter. A shouter was much better than a crier. I was disgusted with myself for freezing too. He had no right to put his hands on me, and I did nothing to stop him. Words didn't seem enough for that boy. And instead of kicking him in the junk or slapping his hand away, I'd clammed up just like I always did. I should have learned by now that being a pushover didn't do me any favors, and not fighting back wasn't an option either. So she has this incredible shame about the way that she's responding to these high stress situations. God. And instead of being able to offer herself grace, she's been in situations where she's been in the hospital, whether that's because of her father, whether that's because of the bullies at school. She has been bullied and physically assaulted to the point where this is her trauma response at this point. Like, she's not even able to logistically think her way out of it. There's no logical strategy to be able to see herself out of situations like this, because when you are in situations where your fight or flight response kicks in, there's nothing that you can do. You're in a different state of mind, completely different state of mind. You're working instinctually, not logistically. So she has shame over the fact that because she's been abused, that her trauma response to years of abuse since she was 4 years old, so we're talking about more than half of her life, she's 15. She's been aggressively bullied for 11 years of her life. And she feels a deep shame about the way that she responds to it. So I just want to acknowledge a little bit more about our girl Shannon and shame. She says in the same chapter that her fight or flight response is freeze, but she does a fair amount of flight too. So we'll keep our eye on both of those things. Okay, chapter 16. Keep your hands off. Johnny POV. Johnny is in such a deep, visceral, physical amount of pain that it takes him 5 minutes of deep breathing to be able to stand up after a play during practice. Hurting, he decides to blow off the last few minutes of practice to find an ice pack when he hears a grating noise, aka Ronan McGarry. Going from 0 to 100 in the span of a heartbeat, Johnny demands answers, and Gibbs tells him that Ronan was trying to mac on Shannon, but that he has it under control. Don't worry about it, Johnny. I've got it under control. Johnny is ready to paint the town red, but Gibbs reminds him that Shannon is watching on. Johnny hauls Ronan back to the locker room, and the two get into a fight. Satisfied that he won't do it again, but too frustrated to stick around, Johnny seeks out Shannon to ensure that she's okay. So in this chapter, Johnny literally thinks his teammates are sloppy and sluggish. Johnny outperforms them all, even with his injury. And his expectations are high, and he demands perfection because, quite frankly, that's what he's been molded into by the academy. I loved this quote so much from this chapter when Ronan McGarry goes, "Back up, I mean it, back the hell up, Kavanaugh." And Johnny responds, "Nice words, pity you don't know the meaning of them." The way that Johnny's brain works sometimes, I really admire and appreciate it. The fact that he can turn that around and point out the hypocrisy to somebody like Ronan McGarry, especially when we have men who get uncomfortable. Like, if you've ever watched a video by, let's say, like gay men hitting on them, and they're like, that makes me uncomfortable. And women are like pot kettle, you know? So the fact that he's like, back up, like, I mean it, Kavanaugh, back the hell up. And Johnny's like, you don't know the meaning of those words because Shannon was just telling you to back up and you weren't doing that either. So why should I back up off of you? I really loved that part of this chapter. Then we have Johnny saying, if you push me on this, I'll kill you. Literally, once again, Johnny is so fucking angry. His language is so severe. But what I was thinking about as I was rereading this is Johnny angry because Ronan was getting handsy with Shannon? Or is it because Ronan dares to make a move on a girl that he likes when Johnny is too stuck in his own fear to be able to do it? I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure it's a little bit of both, but I just wanted to put that in there because when I was rereading this chapter, I was like, I think he's a little jealous that Ronan would dare to make a move on Shannon because he feels like he can't for a myriad different reasons. Chapter 17, you've got a fast car, Shannon POV. Now, obviously, this is supposed to be reminding us of the song Fast Car. So a lot of music in this chapter. I'm going to read lyrics at the end. Here's her summary. Big Bro Joe finally calls Shannon back, but tells her he can't come and pick her up. White Knight Johnny offers to give Shannon a spin home. Joey overhears this conversation between Johnny and Shannon and insists on talking to Johnny on the phone. Accepting the ride, Shannon gets into the car and Johnny tries to suss out if Shannon is a fan. And Shannon feels like she's missing a big piece of the puzzle that she's not realizing. And that would be that Johnny is a big-time rugby player. The two learn more about each other and their relationship begins to deepen. Johnny confides in Shannon about his lingering injury and then immediately gets frustrated and takes it all out on Shannon. Shannon gives Johnny a piece of her mind, and the crowd roars. Yay, Shannon! Stand up for yourself, girly pop. You deserve to. The two argue before Shannon storms off and heads inside. All right, so let's talk about some things from this chapter. Number one, Joey is very much Shannon's father figure. Sure, he's her brother. They're like roughly like 2 years and like 9 months apart, right? So I love that Joey is like this figure for her and basically has like an intentions conversation with Johnny. We don't get to hear Joey's end of the conversation, at least not in this book, but we get to hear, you know, what Johnny's response to all of this is. So we also see like a little bit more Johnny lore about his trauma. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Johnny's trauma gets overlooked because Johnny is so repressed that it doesn't get to come out very often. So Johnny is very insecure that people only like him for his celebrity, not his friends, although he knows that some of his teammates, you know that he's the shit. But when it comes to girls like Bella, you know, when he's had conversations about Bella, he's like, I want to bring Bella to the movies and to dinner because I'm not opposed to doing that, but those things aren't public enough for Bella because she's basically only dating me because she wants people to see that she's with me out at these public places, a bar or, you know, one of the galas or whatever, the award ceremony, because those things are quite public and that is pulling her into the space of the public eye. So it has nothing to do with Johnny, and Bella doesn't really have feelings for Johnny, right? And we get the impression that Bella's not the first one, that a lot of people see Johnny and leverage his celebrity in one way or another. We see Joey do it. He's like, yeah, I can get you tickets for the home game only, right? So this is like a deep insecurity for him. It's a part of his trauma that he really wants this thing, and yet like he can't trust the relationships that are developing around him. That's why he's so loyal. That's why he's so invested in his relationship with Gibbs, or why he's so invested in his relationship with his family, or spends a lot of time alone, or dedicates a lot of time to the club, because he has this insecurity that the people that he meet, particularly romantically, are going to use him because they know that he's on his way to be a professional rugby player. And on one hand, Shannon unintentionally pushes on this by acknowledging that he has a nice car. Like, she's taken aback by his Audi A3. She is just like, I think that this is a really nice car. And he's like, oh, are you into cars? And we know from the stretch of chapters, she says, well, my brother works with cars. So I'm like, I know a lot about them, but like, nah, I don't really care. She also pushes on this insecurity by saying that she's big into sports. She's like, I love sports. And she then confides in him that Joey is playing at the county level for Cork for hurling, which is like a sport that's similar to field hockey. So she's like confiding in him that she likes sports, and now this is like sending alarm bells. He's like, she's into nice cars, she likes sports. Like, for Johnny, you can see him kind of spiraling over this because he's like, she knows who I am and she's pushing on these things because that's what I can provide for her. At the same time, she then sort of soothes something about this insecurity by saying to him, people don't get how incredibly hard it is to play at that level and stay there. They assume it's easy for athletes and that they're spoiled and entitled, but they don't see the huge behind the scenes sacrifices that are made daily by those guys. Now, she's talking about Joey here, but Johnny hears that and like something inside of him loosens up. So in the stretch of chapters, we also discover that Johnny got hurt at 16. That's when he hurt his adductor muscle. He's nearly 18. He's going to be 18 in May. And we're at March 1st right now. So Johnny has been playing with this injury for a long time. Johnny has surgery for his adductor on December 16th, which means depending on when he got injured, he played for over a year, at least a year, with this severe injury before getting surgery. And now he's had the surgery. He got the surgery on December 16th. He went back into the hospital December 26th. It is now March 1st. So, an insane amount of time that he's been playing at an elite level for nearly 2 years with this injury. During that time, he just went over the summer, ahead of having surgery in December, over the summer, played on the senior team, played for the U18s, is still playing on 3 different levels. He's playing for the club, he's playing for the academy, and he's playing for school. And that's on top of a tour, potentially 2 tours, depending on when he got this injury. So he's been playing at an elite level, severely injured for nearly 2 years. Now, you can see a lot of Johnny's trauma by the way that he responds when he says, I know what girls are like for gossiping. I know what most girls are like. Really disheartening language as far as like the advancement of feminism goes and these stereotypes that men depict for women, particularly around gossiping. But it's very clear that this is where Johnny's trauma stems from, that he's so used to girls using him that this is just a belief that he has in his head. Is it a correct belief? No. Does it need to get changed? Yes. Does Shannon kind of call it out and be like, why does he want to hang out with me if I'm like most girls to him? Yes. But I don't love this language. I know what girls are like for gossiping. It's like, fuck you, Johnny Kavanaugh. You don't know what girls are like for anything. Shannon says in this stretch of chapters that The Middle by Jimmy Eat World is her anthem. Shannon, in this stretch of chapter, is comfortable enough to tell Johnny exactly what she's thinking. So she lays into Johnny about his injury, about how he's treating her, all this good stuff. And I love that Johnny brings this out for her, creates enough of a safe space for her to be able to feel like she can do that. Chapter 18, Overreactions and Fading Dreams, Johnny's POV. Johnny's angry, shocker. But at the sight of his mom, he immediately starts to decompress. They catch up before his mom, much like Shannon, points out that he is limping. She also holds up the paper, which has a huge picture of Shannon and Johnny from the schoolboy shield game. Naturally, it's in the national papers because, well, he's Johnny Kavanaugh. Mrs. Kavanaugh gives Shannon her Mama Bear stamp of approval. She insists on framing the picture after hounding Johnny about this mystery girl. Johnny's normal mantra of repress, repress, repress has him sitting in the shower, spiraling about Shannon, his injury, and all of his bottled up fears. Important details. Johnny is angry. He is thrumming with frustration at Shannon. And once again, I just want to point out, Johnny doesn't like to be ignored or dismissed. Thank God Shannon doesn't have a pet bunny around, because it's starting to sound a lot like Fatal Attraction. He can at least admit that she was right and that he's feeling defensive over it. So once again, he has these sort of emotional, heated outbursts, but he is self-aware enough to realize what's going on not in the heat of the moment, certainly, because he does fall into the category of like has heat in the moment. But I think afterwards, when he has these reflection periods to which he takes these like scolding hot showers, almost like himself burning the frustration off of him, feeling defensive over the fact that Shannon, not only knows this, but calls him out on what he already knows is going on, which is like, this injury isn't getting any better, and she's pointing out that it's not great and I should be doing something about it, and he's feeling defensive over that. Johnny also mentions that his parents travel a lot for work. His dad's a barrister. He works in Dublin. His mom's in fashion. She works primarily in London, so they're away quite often. He says that his mom has recently been gone for 3 weeks, and he didn't realize how much he missed her until she came home. So a good mom, to me, is always going to make you feel like you can unwind and decompress. I used to be like, on my most stressed days, I would come to my mom's house and immediately fall asleep on the couch. Like, it would almost be like I couldn't even keep my eyes open, because I felt so safe and so taken care of and so nurtured. Even if my mom wasn't home, even if my mom wasn't there, even if I wasn't talking to her, like she's in another room and I'm doing something, I would just be able to fall asleep on my mom's couch because I could unwind and decompress. And this is what happens for Johnny. Like, he sees her standing there, and like the weight of the world that's on his shoulders, that's been placed there by himself and by the people around him, just immediately evaporates at the sight of her, because she can help him decompress from that. He also makes it a point to say that his mom doesn't ask about rugby, and that this is an intentional choice, that he's aware that she does not ask about rugby intentionally, because she wants to know about Johnny first. So he says, it wasn't that ma'am didn't care about my passion. She just always made it a point to let me know that she cared about the rest of me first and foremost, which I think is really lovely. Also, a mother's intuition, like this idea of Johnny clocking the concept of a mother's intuition. So he said, if I lied, she'd see through me. If I told her the truth, she'd panic. And then goes on to say, if I kept pushing, she'd do that thing that mothers do when they made you reveal things without asking. So the way he avoids these women, Shannon and his mom, because they see right through him and they don't see the rugby first. They see the boy first. So they're not like, you're limping, what's wrong? How come you're not playing well? Yada, yada. Where like Bella is like, everyone says that your game is thrown off, like you're never going to make it, all of this stuff, like pressing on all of his deepest fears, like your game is trash right now. Whereas like Mrs. Kavanaugh and Shannon are basically like, why are you limping? Maybe you should do something about that. And they're not really concerned on it for like a rugby level. It's not about the game, it's about the Johnny of it all. Chapter 9, Late Night Reality Checks, Shannon POV. Shannon walks into her house to her whiskey-drenched father waiting with the newspaper clip. For the first time, we get a dose of what Shannon has been so afraid of. Shannon is so scared she can't even begin to fathom why this picture would make the national papers. So terrified, she believes that this will be the night that she dies. Are you sick to your stomach yet? Just as it starts to get really ugly with Mr. Lynch choking Shannon out, Joey, love of my life, walks in and diffuses the tension. Turns out, however bad you may have envisioned Shannon's dad to be, he's worse. Joey immediately goes into big bro mode and gets Shannon food before sending her on her way, taking the brunt of their father's anger. After things calm down, Shannon camps out in Joey's room, begging him to never leave her. Inquiring minds want to know how Shannon knows Johnny. Joey confirms what Shannon has been missing all along, that Johnny is a big shot rugby player. Joey warned Shannon off from getting her hopes up about whatever it is that Shannon and Johnny are doing. With this newfound information, Shannon turns over the events of the day in her head, deciding to swear off Johnny Kavanaugh for good. Important details. Her father doesn't call her Shannon. He just calls her girl. At one point, Shannon's like, as if it's offensive that I'm a woman or that I'm female in some capacity. So he is just not somebody who likes women. Very clear by the way that he treats Shannon and the way that he treats Marie. So, just to note that like multiple times across this chapter, he does not call her Shannon at all. He just calls her girl. Shannon has this quote where she says, "I immediately recoiled, but didn't dare open my mouth to defend myself. He wouldn't believe me either way. 9 times out of 10, it made it worse. 10 times out of 10, answering back resulted in a stinging cheek." Pretty important information here that 9 times out of 10, talking back to her father and explaining herself, whatever the situation is going to make things worse, escalate him. 10 times out of 10, no matter what the situation is, her saying something and answering him back is going to result in him slapping her in some way or hitting her in some way. We also have in this stretch of chapter where Shannon calls Joey the alpha and recalls the day that the power dynamic shifted in their house, saying that Joey's now the top dog because there was a moment where Joey was able to like beat the shit out of their father, and that shifted the power dynamics a little bit. Shannon also says that Johnny made her forget that it was child allowance day because she's like, it's a good day. It's a good day. Like, this isn't supposed to be a day that he's drinking. And then it dawns on her, it's March 1st. This is child allowance day, another day where they get a check in the mail, and he went and blew it and he's been drinking. And so we know that Johnny is also struggling with how Shannon pulls him out of his normal routine too. So these are two people whose attraction to each other is actually dangerous in some way or another. Not maybe literally, but for Johnny, he's blowing off PT to drive Shannon home. His head's not in the game all the way because he's got these growing feelings for Shannon. He's sharing secrets with her that could be career ending for him if they're discovered. And then for Shannon, she's ignoring her survival instincts because she's so wrapped up in this relationship with Johnny. And this is something that for her, like remembering this detail that it's child allowance day would have put her on higher alert walking into the house, no matter whether the newspaper came out or not, which she didn't know this newspaper article came out. Not that this is an excuse. He shouldn't be hitting her either way, but that her normal alertedness to her father's behavior and the things that she needs to do mentally to keep herself safe in her house are just like washing down the drain because she's absorbed in this growing relationship with Johnny. So for both of them, this is like quite dangerous. Again, not literally, well, maybe for Shannon a little bit more literally, but for Johnny, it's more of like, it's dangerous to be playing a game with something that I care so deeply about when the thing that I care so deeply about could be really diminished by me having my eye off of the prize. And then Promise Watch. Promise Watch, Joey promises to get Shannon and himself out of the house once he hits college. Chapter 20, Mother Knows Best, only in the movies. A Shannon POV. In the morning, Shannon's mom is waiting for her to do some serious crisis control. Shannon confronts Marie by asking her to sign the permission slip for the rugby match in Donegal and follows it up with a hard dose of reality. She's safer away for a few nights than she is in their home. Marie goes on the defense for Teddy, but Shannon isn't having it, saying that he should stop gambling and drinking their money away. Eventually, the truth comes out that Johnny did drive her home, and Mrs. Lynch threatens to call the school, but Shannon threatens her right back by saying that she will tell the school everything that is happening at home if Marie doesn't leave Johnny alone. Important details from this chapter. Shannon resents her mother's weakness, aka her mother consistently taking her father back. The fact that Marie can't prioritize her children is something that is so deeply shameful for Marie. And you can see, because multiple times when Shannon is pushing back, she says, like, these words are landing like physical blows. She's flinching. She's like backing away as if she's being physically struck by the words that Shannon is saying. So we have to talk about what abuse can do to you mentally. Like, we just simply cannot escape this stretch of chapters without talking about it, because we really need to understand this to understand Marie. So I'm going to tag in the show notes this amazing article by Shoreline Recovery Center about domestic violence and how it can affect you across the board. But I'm just going to read a little bit of it. So, cognitive dissonance and trauma bond. There are two psychological states that are vital for victims of physical and emotional abuse that they need to be aware of: cognitive dissonance and trauma bonds. These states completely override the victim's valid reasoning that could help them gain freedom from their abuser. This process can happen automatically to the brain when an individual is placed into an abusive situation for a long duration of time, like 23 years, let's just say, maybe even longer, because we don't know how long Marie dated Teddy before they got pregnant with Darren and started their family. Cognitive dissonance reflects the distress and trauma holding two opposing beliefs simultaneously. Individuals often will sit fighting between two opposite reasonings. These can often take for as: number one, an abuser is a nasty person who has wholly violated my trust. I have witnessed a pattern of cruelty and evil. They are toxic individuals that I need to get rid of. And two, this is the conflicting thought, an abuser is a good man deep down. They were having a hard day and didn't intentionally go out of their way to hurt me. It just happened. Their aggression was not indeed at me. He was protecting himself from the guilt that he's carrying around at what he did. When our brains start attempting to make sense of conflicting opposite information, the process of reasoning and rationalizing commonly begins to happen. The process can begin immediately for a victim to end the cycle of trauma and rid themselves of their abuser and the hostile environment that they cause. They must start seeing the situation for how it is. The victim must stop reasoning and rationalizing that their abuse will stop or change. So I will tag the whole article, but I just absolutely love this. I don't think we can escape the stretch of chapters without talking about this. And that brings us to the end of this episode. I'm going to read the lyrics, or at least some of them, from each of the songs that are mentioned, because I think that they're important. So we have Walk of Life by Dire Straits. This is kind of like an 80s song. If you've never heard of it, you should go look it up. I'll tag them if I can. I'll see if it'll let me tag the songs depending on the platform. So, Walk of Life, Dire Straits, Here Comes Johnny singing, Oldies, Goldies, Bebopalua, Baby What I Say, Here Comes Johnny singing, I Got a Woman down in the tunnels trying to make it pay. He's got the action, he's got the motion. Yeah, the boy can play, dedication, devotion, turning all the nighttime into day. So, something about Johnny, devotion, nighttime into day, right? Then this song isn't mentioned directly, but the title, You've Got a Fast Car, right, is supposed to make us think of this song by Tracy Chapman. So, you got a fast car. I want a ticket to anywhere. Maybe we can make a deal. Maybe we can get somewhere. Any place is better. Starting from zero, got nothing to lose. Maybe we'll make something. Me, myself, and I got nothing to prove. You got a fast car. I got a plan to get us out of here. I've been working at the convenience store, managed to save just a little bit of money, won't have to drive too far, just cross the border and into the city. You and I can both get jobs and finally see what it means to be living. See, my old man's got a problem. He lived with the bottle. That's the way it is. He says his body's too old for working. His body's too young to look like his. My mama went off and left him. She wanted more from life than he could give. I said somebody's got to take care of him, so I quit school, and that's what I did. You got a fast car. Is it fast enough so we can fly away? We got to make a decision. Leave tonight or live and die this way. The song goes on and on. I'll tag the lyrics, but you can see how this is pertinent to Johnny and Shannon and their story and how it's developing. And then The Middle by Jimmy Eat World. Hey, don't write yourself off yet. It's only in your head you feel left out or looked down on. Just try your best, try everything you can, and don't worry about what they tell themselves when you're away. It just takes some time. Little girl, you're in the middle of the ride. Everything will be just fine. Everything will be all right. So, important songs for us in our storytelling that I just wanted to pay attention to. Okay? Let's crack open our burn book, where we will talk about our superlatives for this episode. The Bold and Bothered Award. This award is strictly for the femme and the furious. It is the quote or the moment that relays the most feminine rage. and it is Shannon laying into Johnny about his injury. The Shiro Award. This award goes to the baddie who is the most inspiring or the moment that is the most empowering. Joey Lynch, babes. Coming in to rescue my girl Shannon. I love Joey. I'm a Joey stan. Joey can do no wrong in my eyes. He's perfect. Something you should know about me if you don't know this already, I love a brother figure. I love a brother figure. There was another book series, fantasy series called The Ascended and Riftborn, etc. If you read those books, I read Ascended first and I was like, I fear I'm in love with the brother. And that makes me scared because usually the brother has a plot line where he dies or is leveraged in some way. I met Joey Lynch. Could not have been more down the second I met him. So if you're wondering if we get more Joey, not only do we get more Joey in this book and next book in Keeping 13, but Joey has his own 2 books, which is Saving 6 and Redeeming 6. And that's the next duology in 13, the Boys of Tommen series. So we will get a lot more about Joey. And if you find yourself like me, really liking a Joey character, guess what? You've got 2 whole books that you can read about him. The Femme Fatale Award, for the most smash the patriarchy moment of the episode. Shannon refusing to give up her number to Ronan, like quite literally telling him like, you're a stranger to me. I don't know you. Speak Your Truth trophy. Best quote or line. This is from Gibbsy, where he says, dogs that can't control themselves around Cap's new buddy go outside. This is after he's literally forced Ronan through the doorway and has locked the door. Was like holding the door shut so that Ronan can't get back in. I love this line. I thought it was really funny. Honorary heartthrob, because I'm just a girl, okay? And I want to talk about the most swoon-worthy moments. And again, this for me is Gibbs. Gibbs and Claire, to me, their relationship is so precious. So he says at the lunch table, say the word Claire Bear, tell me you're ready for us, and I'm all yours. I love that moment. Love it, love it, love it so, so, so much. Okay. If you want to stick around for foreshadow, great. If you don't, thanks so much for hanging out. Okay. I will see you tomorrow for a feminist critique of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. So I will see you then. Okay. All right. If you're still here, we're doing a foreshadow, which means things that were foreshadowed in this stretch of chapters that will be in this book or other books or future properties. Okay. So starting with chapter 12, Shannon says to Joey, be safe, I called after him. I'm too young to be an auntie. Well, we will discover, if you're paying subtle attention, which we'll keep coming back to this, you will discover it in this book, okay? I kind of knew right away that Aoife was pregnant in this book by the time we got to certain points of the book foreshadowing forward. You obviously learn a lot more about this in Joey's books, but it's not really ever explicitly mentioned in Shannon's books. It's more subtle. It's way more overt in Aoife and Joey's POVs, obviously. But yeah, be safe. I called after him. I'm too young to be an auntie. Sorry, baby, because you will be. You will be an auntie. You're not too young because you will be. Chapter 14. Gibbsy says, I have something to show you. I'm not looking at your penis, so stop trying to show it to me, Claire. Not that. This is him talking about his Jacob's ladder. He has a Jacob's ladder. It doesn't start that way, but he does. We learn this not only in, at the very least, in Keeping 13, but we also learn it in, or we have more explicit content on it in Taming 7. Chapter 15, that sounded desperate and a little rapisty. So we know that Gibbs has been sexually assaulted. We talked about this last episode in our spoiler section. So we know that he's not going to tolerate this behavior of any kind. And then chapter 19, Joey saying that he'll never leave her being Shannon, makes this promise to her, but he does leave. And the night that he does leave is the night that Teddy attempts to kill them all. It is the night that his parents die. So some nice Keeping 13 action for you. All right. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Femme and Furious. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow with an episode of feminist critique on A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, and then back next Tuesday with chapters 21 to 30 for Binding 13. If you have questions, comments, concerns, send them over to femmeandfuriouspod@gmail.com. Join the newsletter. And until then, bye, Shannon.